From Sunset Beach, Hawaii, weighing 267 pounds, the magnificent Muraco.
Why is it they call him magnificent? The man who lifts condominiums off his chest. Anything that's explosive, anything that's exciting, Prince of Darkness, Master of Destruction, perpetrator of violence. Get ready! I'm gonna burn this place down!
Hello and welcome to the 20th episode of Don Muraco's Magnificent Podcast. I'm not sure, they said we wouldn't get to 20, well, no one said we wouldn't get to 20, but we have got to 20, that's the point. My name's James, you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, obviously most people see us on YouTube. This podcast is also available as a podcast, iTunes, everywhere else you want to go, and dontherockmorocco.com for all your signed merchandise. And I'll mention mine at the beginning as well. I've got merchandise as well, Rock and Owen Hart books on Amazon. This episode, this is going to be the fifth one I think we've done, where it's Ask Muraco Anything, and basically it's just fans' questions to The Rock, to the Magnificent One, for 1 hour straight. And are you ready for the very first one, Don? What, are you looking for something?
Oh, yeah.
So when I was doing the intro, I was looking at you, just looking all around. I was wondering what you were trying to find.
I'm just fooling around here.
Oh, right. I thought, oh, right, I didn't know you were winding me up.
You only went through it one time. I figured a couple more runs. That's fine. No, great.
Yeah, you were looking at you watching. Oh, Jesus. Oh, God,
yeah.
He's waffling on this guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
Right, so I've got an hour's worth of questions. Do you know what? I said I wasn't going to ask it, but I'm going to say it anyway. Search for Tomorrow. We did the soap opera watch-along where you're in this 1985 soap opera with Hulk Hogan, and it's almost like a Jerry Springer-style face-off. Well, yeah, there is a face-off, and then you're interviewed separately, and you, Fuji, smash up the set. And one of the things you mentioned in it was you need to keep that title as shiny as you keep your head to Hulk Hogan. And I always thought there was an embargo on mentioning Hulk Hogan's, as you described, plunging hairline. So you didn't get the memo then, I take it?
No, I didn't get the memo. I didn't. I didn't know. It was a nice shiny head. That little Friar Tuck thing going.
Yeah, the skullet, I believe it's popularly known as, where nothing on the top, fun at the back. So, half the mullet. Right, so this is going to be an hour's worth of questions, and I've got an hour's worth of questions from you, and the first one is from me, because it's my podcast, and I can ask you whatever you want. Well, you don't have to answer anything. At the moment, Britain, as we film, same as last week, 27th of September, is going through a bit of a fuel crisis. It's been blamed from everything from COVID to Brexit to not enough HGV drivers to do it, pardon the pun, a big drive to hire more long-haul drivers and such to get the gas into the stations, and everyone's panic buying as well because they heard there was going to be a shortfall. Now, in the Territory days, how did people cope with the US oil crisis, both the first and second? In 1973, which is the first one, you were wrestling for Roy Shires and Don Owen. The second one, 1979, you were in Florida. So how did the wrestlers deal with the sort of a shortage of gas those 2 years, and how did they get around when they needed it?
The first one was the only one that impacted me. I was with Shires there, and I had my ex-wife had a Volkswagen. So with a can of gas, I could pretty much get there and get back wherever I was going. I had that car. I took it to Modesto one time. I came out, somebody stole it. So I had to do the whole thing and get it back, and drive all over to Sacramento. And I had my own pickup truck, but I had to tow it back to Santa Cruz because they had messed it up. Anything. So a week or so later, I was driving the same Volkswagen to Fresno. And I got pulled over for driving a stolen car. And they started to arrest me. And, you're going to take me. I said, hey, no, I said, I just, you got to. Well, way before computer, the computer was you had the date there, the early 70s. So it was well before. 73.
Yeah,
so it was well before computers and everything. So the Sacramento law, it was listed as a stolen car. So evidently it hadn't made it down the chain of command that the owner had picked it up and it was no longer stolen. So that was a one harrowing experience. But aside from that, everybody kind of. Well, at that time I was living by myself in Santa Cruz, so I'd have pretty much stuck with that the VW bug because I couldn't. And Santa Cruz is a little bit removed. We didn't have quite the lines that the big cities and stuff had. So it was a little bit cooler. So I didn't really experience it that bad.
With the Frisco territory, am I right in saying that it was not a big traveling territory? It was, maybe 90 miles here, 50 miles here, and you were mostly at home, or am I wrong in saying that?
Yeah, no, it was, yeah. In fact, for me, it was probably the longest, because I lived in Santa Cruz, extra, 30 miles past San Jose. Everybody else was living up around Hayward, Oakland area, where, Bobby Jaggers and Fuji and those guys, used to run wild in Northern California there. So, yeah, it was, whatever it was.
Well, it's because you were thinking of some sort of terrible story with Bobby Jaggers and Mr. Fuji, wasn't it?
Yeah. That was the damn coffee. I put the coffee pot on. I'm just running it through and it's making a lot of noise.
I will ask one more thing then. You said were you actually taken downtown for the stolen VW incident, or?
No, I wasn't. I pulled over on the side of the road and then we cleared it up and I was on the road. Another half hour, 45 minutes I was driving again. And had to explain to Shires why I was late.
Did he believe you?
Probably not.
No. Just to harp on this slightly more, what did other wrestlers do then in other territories? Do you know? Was there stockpiling going on? Was there events cancelled? Did you hear anything?
I didn't hear. I imagine, different, like your Oklahomas and, those areas where they had, and your Amarillos and stuff like that, where they did tremendous amount of driving, even Florida, like Miami and back was like 300 one way. So you'd have to get gas sooner or later somewhere. But yeah, I'm sure, everybody had their hardships at that time. So,
yeah.
I was young and I had a Volkswagen.
A lot of queuing going on as well. Maybe outside the Volkswagen, I don't know as well. I will give you the first non-me question I'm going to give you, from Jamal Moses, Mr. Muraco. What's your 5 favourite matches as a wrestler? And what is your favourite promo / interview you ever did? So we'll tackle your favourite matches ever.
My own favourite matches or just favourite matches, period?
It just says what are your 5 favourite matches as a wrestler, so I'm going to assume the ones that you were in.
No, it'd have to be a couple with Koloff. Like I said, obviously Snuka. There's a bunch of. I remember one with Snuka that was. We were up in Boston, and it was myself and Cowboy Orton, Bob Orton, and he's another one of those little Valentine, Sergeant Slaughter, Paul Orndorff. Bob Orton was another premier heel, premier worker, minus the interviews, but he was, just a great asset. But anyway, back to the story. I might have been the time where Roddy was having a kid or gone. I don't know if I was filling in or he was filling in or what, but it was Bob and I in a tag against Snuka and Hogan. Boston Gardens, sold out. And I remember something, Snuka came off the top rope on me. I was standing, I caught him, and Bob hit him with the cast, his cast, and Jimmy got collar and rolled out, fell out to the floor. When we took over and Hulk started. Anyway, so Hulk came back and started coming back, and the place just erupted. And then somehow we stopped Hulk or something. And then when Snuka came in on top of that, it was just a double explosion that was just, was really a memorable point aside from matches. To pinpoint a match, there was a lot of matches that, a lot of guys that, Jack Briscoe, Stevens, and different guys I worked with, Steamboat, Bob Backlund, Jimmy, of course, and all the other guys. It's like, where's your favorite place to wrestle? It depends, where you happen to be at the time, and then things are going down right. And like favorite wrestlers, there's a handful of them, and I was fortunate enough to be, to always, usually be with somebody that's, was a good, was a tremendous performer. So I was lucky that I always had somebody to help me like that through the match. I remember, of course, I remember the cage match with Jimmy, and I remember a cage match with Ivan in St. Petersburg, Florida, where I was baby facing that. And I remember that as being exceptional. And then other matches around, naturally, our matches with Jack Briscoe and Bob Backlund, and changing titles with Pedro Morales in the Garden or Philadelphia. They're all memorable. There's just not there wasn't one guy that liked better, or one match I like better than another. There are many. I don't know if any other guys, wrestlers, have their preferences to matches, but in everybody else, in every territory, you have an angle or somebody, or an arch rival or arch enemy, whether you're a babyface or a heel. So it doesn't, wherever you were, there was a time there that you were at odds with somebody.
This is just mine. As a fan, your favorite ever match that you ever watched, whether you're in the business or before?
Watched. There was a lot of impressions that they were made. I remember Blassie wrestling Nef Mayavo here in Hawaii when I was a little kid. When Blassie was just at the peak of his heat, was at the peak of his heel run out of Los Angeles and over here, and he, just a tremendous amount of heat. And then other times, when I was young, Carpentier and some of those guys, Bearcat Wright, and other those guys coming through. Steamboat and Macho Man had a hell of a match. I remember Pat Patterson and Slaughter in that Broadway Broadway Street Fight or whatever it has.
Boot Camp, wasn't it?
Yeah. Okay. And that was there's a lot of, there were a lot of great performers out there. A lot of guys, that knew how to get it done. Dusty always had, good stuff.
And also, sorry, what was your favorite promo interview you ever did? Do you have one, or if not, we'll move on?
There's a few. They were teasing me one time. There was a pulpit there, and I used to do the Ernest Angley thing. Baby, the evangelist. I break down into an evangelist type thing, and everybody's like, use the pulpit. So I had a Playboy or something, I was pointing right here, to the Garden of, the Garden of Eden, Garden of Passion, and Avenue 33, Street 8, the Garden of Madison. So I remember, I ran off of that. I seen it around a few places, and it was fun. And then other, Florida, when I had with the family, with Curtis and Killer Khan, Joe LeDuc, and all these other guys, I remember I did a promo for going up to Gainesville. And they were having a dismal football season, but losers, and we're winners. And, different promos that came through, but nothing that really sticks. I have God, the thousands and thousands of units that we did in our time. So it's hard to.
At some point, we'll probably watch some more and sort of talk over them and see what happens. I'm going to give you this next question now from GOK. I want to know all his experiences, good and terrible, in, and I've blanked this bit out, Stampede, because we've talked about Stampede before, but I'll give you All-Star Wrestling with Sandor Kovacs, Gene Knitsky, and unfortunately, Al Tomko. You were there before the Al Tomko era, I believe, weren't you?
Yes, yeah. I didn't. Al Tomko was still in Winnipeg, I believe, or up around Minneapolis. Boy, I was barefoot and pregnant. I didn't know what was going on. I just started with the Kovacs and Knitsky and their promotion, and I was lucky to be Dean Higuchi was there. Steve Bolus, Eric Froelich. There are a couple guys, Bud Rattel, old time, he was an old time wrestler. Bud Rattel, good hooker, good. Bud Rattel and Jim Gillies. Was a Western Gym down in the downtown Vancouver where we used to work out. They had a whole ring in there, and I used to work out with them a lot in the Vancouver area. But I was just, I didn't know my padlock from an arm lock back then.
Was it, I'm assuming you're sort of like relatively low on the rung as like because this was your first year in the business, wasn't it? I mean, what was...
Oh yeah, I was just
What was maybe the pay for a very wet behind the ears, as we'd say over here, wrestler?
Oh, a couple $100 a week. I remember I had they booked me slow. I don't know why, but they had something else where they wanted, so we'd go down to Portland, Oregon for Don Owens for TV. And I knew I had 3 or 4 days off, and I had that VW bug still before. So I said, hey, I'm not doing anything. If you can use me these days here, that like a Wednesday, Thursday, before I go back, I don't have to go back to Vancouver till Friday, I guess. So I was there like a Monday through Thursday or something, and so he used me. And I remember I picking up. I ended up with like $400, I think, almost maybe $500 for the week. I thought, oh boy, I made it. This is it. I finally hit the big time. Only 6 months in the business, and I have the money in it now. That was, I remember. So the money before that $400 a week had to be pretty lean, but I was pretty lean too at the time. So.
Any memories of Kovacs, Knitsky? I take it you never really interact with Al Tomko.
No, not till I got to Minnesota, and then he was kind of a TV guy. He was never a promoter or that I dealt with. Kovacs is the one that gave me my start. He was over at Tallyho's house there on the LOI, and he came in and for either spaghetti or soy chicken dinner that Lee Blears used to make. So he said, oh yeah, Tally, he said, this guy used to, amateur wrestler, surfer, blah, blah, blah. He said, well, how'd you like it? I said, sure. About 3 or 4 weeks later, I was on a plane to Vancouver, British Columbia, and that's where I started. I lived in Kovacs' basement for a couple months down below while I was learning and getting on the road, and then got an apartment down English Bay, Vancouver, beautiful town, beautiful city.
I will give you the next question then. This is from Webmail, because they didn't leave their actual name. Have there been times when a jobber loses it and beats up the star they're wrestling, either in the ring or in the back?
I imagine there has been, not that I remember, what kind of jobber, you hear the stories about Steven Regal and Goldberg or things like that, where guys that are established, or what was his name? Like the kid I was in Japan with, and I forgot his name. Jericho and different guys, in the back. But I've never been around any, where jobber beating up
Have you ever been in the ring with a jobber who maybe is trying to get themselves over a bit more than you feel they should?
Well, that would have to really go way back to my babyface memory. And one guy did. He was, I forget, Minneapolis TV, and I back suplexed him one time, and he, why'd you do that? I don't know. It seemed right at the time, but that was no, there was, even back then, things were pretty, before it changed to Ultimate Warrior days, where they had guys, that they're part of the plot, they're the Tom Cruise or the Jack Nicholson of the movie, and everybody else is, just playing their part. So whether they can wrestle or they can perform or whatever, they got the spot and you work for them. And they may have disrespected somebody or somebody later where they take an issue with them, but never wouldn't happen in the ring. They just stop the tape, and you lose your job.
Well, there was the Dynamite Kid one that you must remember at the time with Mick Foley.
No, what happened?
Apparently, this is in his first book, Mick Foley's first book. He suggested some sort of some back elbow thing to the Bulldogs, and the Bulldogs were just sort of taken aback that a jobber would ask them to put their own spots into the match. And the point is, Dynamite was finally got Mick Foley in the ring and just clubbed him really hard in the jaw with a clothesline, and Mick Foley was sucking his meals through a straw for the foreseeable future afterwards.
Yeah, sounds like Dynamite.
What is jobber etiquette then? So you're maybe changing from the mid-80s, late 80s WWF to the early days. Would you ever expect someone who was doing the honors for you at that level to suggest spots or anything else to you, or are they just basically chop meat and they just need to shut up, or what?
Depending on who the guy, who it was, I mean, there are guys that come around all the time. It depends if you know him, if you trusted him, otherwise, you're just there. It's your moment, it's for you to shine. So it's not, you can squeeze it in to give him a little credibility to boost your own status up, but it's about you. All those shows are those matches are, I'll call them like investments, whether you're on TV or, but they're like putting $1 in the bank every time. Being exposed, being on the television is, tremendous amount of advertising for yourself.
Well, that's how Vince McMahon span it to you, so he didn't have to pay you very much for the TV shows, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right, I'll tell you this next one then. I can't remember this guy's name or what the question was. I saw it and I loved the question, and I cannot find where this guy sent it. Anyway, somebody somewhere inquired as to if you believe Billy Jack Haynes did indeed witness the death of 2 teenagers in 1987 because of politicians or cocaine or something. But basically, this is just like another Billy Jack fever dream, I think.
He could have, I wasn't, by 97, I'd been down the docks.
This is 87, apparently.
Oh, 87. Well, I think he was out of the territory. By then, he was back in Portland.
No, I think he was there till 88, amazingly. So apparently, in between all this wrestling, he managed to witness one of the most famous double murders and blamed it on politicians somehow.
I saw it in the when you sent me the questionnaire and stuff, but I didn't. I never heard about it. If it happened, it's possible.
Well, he's claimed many times many crazy things. So Vince McMahon killed Chris Benoit because he was having an affair with Nancy. Vince McMahon is to blame for everything, including everybody's drug addictions and Dino Bravo's Mafia hits somehow. He's also challenged Stone Cold Steve Austin a few years ago to a UFC fight and claimed he'd put up $1 million, which I'm quite sure he doesn't have.
This is from who now? These
are all Billy Jack Haynes claims.
Wow. He's reality's I don't know. Talk is it's easy to talk and make up or create. How the validity of anything, I have no idea. I'm ignorant to just about everything. The two teenagers being killed by the politicians, or what you just mentioned now. I have no idea.
He loves a conspiracy theory. Oh, I'll tell you what. I'll move on then.
Rick, like Benoit was way after I left.
2007.
And as far as for Vince having an affair with him, with Nancy, they were in. But she wasn't. She was just living at home, wasn't she?
Oh yeah. Oh, trust me. There's no basis for any of these things.
She was woman on the. That was in Georgia. Georgia, WCW or something. That wasn't.
No.
I don't think Vince was involved there.
Yeah, no, definitely not. But I thought I'd bring it up.
It's a good story. Yeah,
no, it's an amazing story. It's just a load of bollocks, bullshit. Right, I'll mention this next question, and it's from a motel actually. Silver Sands Motel asks, Larry Zbyszko has said that the WWF was nearly bankrupt with Backlund as champion. Is this true? Brackets great podcast. And I think I may have asked you the same thing at some point.
I don't know. Too many big markets, and the card alone, the formula was in those days that they'd bring a guy in, you'd have your big, and that was they did the day of the big heels, the Ox Baker, the 6'6", 300-pound plus heels, and they'd come in, and they started with Bruno to Pedro to Bob and stuff, and the champion was always wrestling oversized heels and stuff. It wasn't until my friend Valentine came in that he started working that low down dirty Brett. Until Valentine came in, they started working programs and stuff not working programs, but working. We went to putting time in with the champ and stuff. So. Where were we going with this?
Larry Zbyszko claiming that Backlund as champion.
Yeah, as far they're going broke. There were. That's why we contrasted the Dory Funk Juniors and the Eddie Grahams from the Vern Gagnes and the Vince McMahon Seniors. Their territories, they're operating on population. They're operating on it was there. You're going to go to a small high school town and draw $10,000, out of a high school. So, but all their massive marketing and their massive productions. But like going back to the formula, you'd have a guy come in 6 to 8 weeks of tapes. You just saturate his tapes onto the wrestling, and you would before myself and other guys, you would go right to your first match would be Madison Square Garden against one of the big venues, but it would be your premiere would be Madison Square Garden with the champ, and you'd break off into 1 or 2 or 3 matches, however many matches you're going to run off of there. But on the card as well, you had Wild Samoans or Dominic DeNucci or all these other guys, the Valiants and all these just in a tremendous array of talent. And you have your Patterson and Slaughter angle, or your other angles going on, your Intercontinental champions, or so you had, it wasn't solely Bob Backlund. that was carrying the territory. Even the fact that the territories were being carried by the heel that was being brought into them for the most part, and then they had their, their strata of like later on, I went to myself and Orndorff, and Valentine and Orton, their tier of lower or fundamental heels or foundational heels that would work. Work your programs and stuff, and they always had talented guys. So as far as the territory run going broke, and when Vince ran low on money and when Vince was overinvested and everything else is when he was going for WrestleMania 1. And then they were putting together and all the TVs and all the networks and national. That's when he was close to, or rumored, close to bankruptcy, and all that aspect of it. But aside from that, I don't think everything was a well-oiled machine, really.
I've heard this criticism a couple of times as well about Backlund, is that, and as you mentioned before, the WWF or WWF champion was only a small part of the whole card. But I've heard this criticism about Backlund, is that they extra loaded the cards to compensate for Backlund. That's for detractors of Bob would say that, like more than they would Pedro or Bruno.
I don't know. It probably was just where the business was heading at the time, where they were breaking off into, they weren't running the single towns, they were starting into the 2 or 3 town, 2 or 3 big cities a night at times, your Midwest, your West Coast, your East Coast, your South, all areas like that. They're running 2 or 3 shows. So, and then when big championship shows, like that they'd throw a bunch of angles together on the card. But as far as that to carry the card, I don't think, I don't know. I'm sure it didn't hurt. And then they like, they all, all the promoters and all the, owners and stuff like to, they like to highlight their cards. They like to turn, put the spotlight on their programs and their shows. So if they have Madison Square Garden cards or Washington Cap Center, these 21,000 capacity arenas, they like to highlight the fact that the place is sold out, or the fact that the place is packed. So, sure, it would be only natural to load the cards.
Well, I think it bears mentioning here that if Bob Backlund was such a subtraction to the total gate, they would not have kept the belt on him for 5 years. So I think that's probably fair to say. I'll move on to the next question. Peter D. Hi, Don. What was Gorilla Monsoon's role backstage, and did you have much to do with him?
Much to do with him? No, he started as an agent. He was he was an owner too. Before it was Vince Senior was still running it was still his company, and so you had Monsoon, Skolin, Phil Zacco, and Savoldi, Angelo Savoldi. I don't know how many times, but he had towns around high schools and VFW clubs and stuff around Jersey, New York, Brooklyn, and those areas in town that Vince would let him run. Like Skolin had White Plains and some of those towns above New York City and stuff like that. So Monsoon started. He was an agent and a contributor. He was a major part of the office, and before he got into the announcing, and he was big around Philadelphia. But when I first run through there, he was pretty much just an agent, take care of the portion of the shows he had. And like I say, he had Philadelphia and Boston. He had a big push in those southernish type of cities, south of New York City and New Jersey that he had a lot of influence. And then gradually, he became an announcer and color man and, interviewer, and he grew into that role afterwards. That was after he sold out to Vince Jr.
I always liked that he was billed as like a wild man from was it Manchuria where he was meant to be from?
Yeah.
And it's like he was a wild man. He never spoke. He might have growled or whatever. And then he retired, and all of a sudden he was a well-spoken, erudite commentator. All of a sudden, that must have thrown a few people off at least.
I imagine, yeah. He's one of those guys that when you talk about Mount Rushmores, where you have the Bruno and Gagne and Luthez and Gorgeous George, or whoever your fourth, your champ. You've got to have an opposing Mount Rushmore for the guys, the Killer Kowalskis and the Gorilla Monsoons and the other guys that made these guys, that made Bruno and stuff. How many Bruno and Monsoon and Bruno and Kowalski and those are legendary feuds that go back through the 60s and late 50s and 60s. Those are the feuds that made Bruno that what Bruno is. So I think you have to go to an alternate universe, a parallel universe to put Mount Rushmore's up of heels and stuff that created these guys.
Okay.
He was told to go to jobbers. There wouldn't be any superstars. There weren't any guys to they frown on the word jobber now. They call it enhancement talent.
Enhancement talent, yeah.
But basically, I was a jobber. Hell, when I was a champion and a main eventer. But I was basically a jobber for Hogan or the promoter or whoever was coming in, and I was one of the top heels of the territory. Everybody's a jobber. The only one not doing jobs is Vince, and then he put over Stone Cold to make more money. So
Yeah, but you jobbed your way all the way to the bank as well, so it's hardly like the worst job in the world. I'll give you a couple more on gorilla and the gorilla position. When was the first time you heard that term? And just explain. I'm sure most people who are watching this, or a lot of people who are watching this, know what is the gorilla position and what was it in the WWF in the 80s.
The gorilla position is sitting your control, ready, set, go. You got your entrance. It's time for you to go in the ring. You go. Prepare. Here comes they put I was sitting with Jerry Briscoe and Monsoon, and they go, excuse me, and it would go where they had the match and the time and everything down, and the referee's got an earpiece and let's go here, get out of that, drop that, let's go home, let's finish, and stuff like that. So that was the gorilla position. I never worked. I never was part of it. I witnessed it one time, but they never had that. When we were working, you just pretty much rely on your own timing and your own. You get a cue or something from a referee or something.
The bow tie starts spinning.
Yeah, the bow tie sort of starts circling. When you get a cue, it's time to go. Or, you're going too far. Or hurry up. Or getting close, but there was never, one-on-one.
Was it
Jerry Briscoe?
Sorry, was it called the gorilla position when you were there, or was that an after thing?
After.
Sorry, you're saying Jerry Briscoe again. Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah,
you.
Jerry Briscoe and Monsoon had that. Let's go 7 minutes. Okay, get out of the headlock and start making a comeback. Let's get ready to go. And they'd be coaching the match from the gorilla position behind the curtains.
It's funny. When I went to university, I studied media broadcasting, and it's in TV terms, it'd probably either be the producer or the floor manager. So the person who they don't direct the audience, obviously, but the person who keeps everything on time and brings people on and off, and that kind of.
Yeah, but they're hooked up with the truck outside too. So everybody's, it's kind of a coordinated, because the truck's running the time. The guy, the TV people running the time. So they know, how much they want to slot it into their part of the main vehicle going out.
Mm-hmm.
So from the up to the truck, to the gorilla position, to the referee in the ring, to the wrestler performing the act of sacrifice.
Just one more on gorilla. I've asked a lot of gorilla questions, but did you ever witness gorilla's love of casinos or restaurants?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, gorilla's there's a lot to talk about. He's an interesting man. He was an amateur wrestler up at Ithaca College. When I was first, I met him, and his appetite was just before he stopped losing weight. So I was at dinner, and it was this Abraham Lincoln Hotel where the Vince Senior and these guys. It's like my first night at TV there in Pennsylvania, Allentown, Hamburg Television, and they'd bring you one of the old Pennsylvania type restaurants. They'd bring you a full tureen, a big pot of soup. And I remember sitting at the table and Monsoon asking for a whole bowl of soup, whole pot of soup. And, I guess he does eat that. He does eat like that. So because they, normally you just bring it out and share it with 2, 3, 4, however many, a bowl of soup. You'd have a regular bowl of soup, and it would accommodate, several people. But yeah, I remember him. And he was he played Baccarat. Yeah, I remember
like Bond.
Yeah, he played the Baccarat in Atlantic City. He was always in New York, we call it New York, WW. But the New York, they were notorious for their card games and stuff back then. So, I mean, the first thing everybody would do is just set their bag down and, bust out the deck of cards. And they start, Skolin and Johnny Rods, Cicluna, and Monsoon would be walking around. And he'd buy, he had the money, and he'd just buy the pots. And, everybody would be betting on their cards. And they just deal Monsoon a hand, and he'd be yelling from a locker, put in 20 for me, I bet I bet 5. It's still not looking at his hand, and that kind of stuff. But yeah, he was he liked to gamble, liked to play cards. All those guys love playing cards.
It was all cribbage though, wasn't it? Back in the locker room. Yeah.
Yeah, they have all these. Like down the docks in Pepito, but they have these insane games that the extra jack or high card here and low card pays off, low in the hole, and all these other stuff where they'd be splitting pots and stuff all the time.
Yeah,
they're always had something going.
I'm going to give you a fact about me. I can play cribbage. I can play Baccarat. Even there's weird different versions of it, and I can also play mahjong. Like the proper tiled stuff. I don't know if you were ever exposed to that. We know with all the Japanese influence in Hawaii.
Mahjong, I knew. Cribbage. I used to play cribbage a lot. I used to play. Fuji and I, me, Fuji, Snuka, Andre always played cribbage. Andre was a good cribbage player. Baccarat, I know nothing about. I'm just reading the Bond books. And it's hard understanding 21 and all that.
It's Swivy and stuff like that. It's a game of pure chance. You either bet on yourself or you bet on the dealer. I'll move on before we get on the history of Baccarat, and we'll head on to Chris Kinieri. Where did the inspiration for Don's trademark lightning bolt on your trunks, I imagine, develop from, and when did he start wearing it?
I started maybe in Florida, I suppose. Colin Hildegard. There's lightning bolt. Jerry Lopez, Roy Russell, Jerry Lopez, Dick Brewer. It was a surfboard company, the surf line in Hawaii, and they made the lightning bolt surfboards for a classmate of mine, Jerry Lopez. He was in Conan the Barbarian. He was the arrow shooter. He was with Arnold and stuff. He was a big before Kelly Slater, big famous surfer, pipeline surfer. We lived on a couple blocks from me, and they started that Lightning Bolt brand. So that's how I went to Lightning Bolt from Lightning Bolt surfing.
I honestly thought you go, I don't know, I just did it. I thought there'd be like no reason. I didn't realize there was like a really specific reason you chose it.
No, yeah, Lightning Bolt. Yeah, it was a big, in the 70s, I guess, was a big thing. Around beachwear and stuff.
Who made your trunks? Did you have to send off for them? Did you?
Carl and Hildegard.
Yeah.
They made all the tights after a while, and then they started breaking off into to different places. But Carl and Hildegard, they had. After a while, I just had my card on file with them if I needed something, even on the road. I didn't have a way of paying them, up front or right over. They still. I ran. A lot of the guys they'd ran credit with. That if you didn't burn them or anything, and you paid for your goods. So I was always in good with them. I need a pair of I need 3 pairs of tights. Give me a red, a blue, and a green or something, like that with the Lightning Bolt and stuff on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was Carl and Hildegard, and there was Ash. Ash was one of the guys that made the boots in Arkansas, I believe. He was the bootmaker, and after a while too, you did the same with him. You'd measure, have all your feet all, this much, that wide, and that high, and everything else.
Did you draw around like a silhouette on a piece of paper?
Yeah, but he'd have still as well. He'd have measurements and stuff to the width and the height and instep and stuff like that. You blow out your boots, or you'd be somewhere, you lose your bag, or you call them in, hey, I need a pair of boots right away. And a couple of days to be there,
How often did you have to, like, because obviously wrestling boots are actually quite soft underneath, aren't they? How often did you have to like re-cork them? Because they're almost like like cork, aren't they? I suppose.
Oh, often. I wrestled a couple main events in the Garden with them just taped together. And, you forget it, you put them back, you take them off, and the sole's hanging on. You forget about it. And then you go to the next town. The next town happens to be a Garden. The night you're somewhere else the night before, and this time, so I ended up taping my soles to my, and foot together and stuff like that. So you just when you usually you had 2, 3, 4 pairs of shoes, to back up, like not like Flair, we had $5,000-$10,000 robes, but it was you'd have it was your job. It was your livelihood. So, you'd have a couple, 3, 4, 5 pairs of shoe boots, different colors or, or whatever. And just use them as you go along.
I always think when I write down like all these questions here, I think, right, I've got everything I need. And then half the stuff I ask you, I just think off the top of my head. So I always like where all these questions sort of lead to. That. Go to the next one then. Don Demel Jr. asked, do you believe Iron Sheik did more medicine than anybody? If not, who? Greg Valentine.
Yeah. He was consistent. The Sheik was consistent. He was always, you have all these guys that kill themselves, all these guys that, the addicted guys that had addiction problems. Rick McGraw. And people that, are just hung up on numbers. And people get hung up on numbers of the pills, how many pills they take. And, I took 20 of these or 20 of those. And just insane numbers. It's amazing that they don't die. Sheik was consistent. Sheik was, I don't know if he took a lot of pills. He had the powder and he had the weed and beer, drinking. He always, I don't know if he ever slept. He was always doing squats, drinking beers, he was an amazing character. But the most, I don't know who did the most. There were different guys that abused themselves, from legendary, from time to time.
I think
there'd be one drug or another, alcohol or pills or cocaine or crack. Everybody I guess they're heroin addicts as well. People don't know that.
It's probably the names that are already out there are probably the names that are correct.
Yeah, you guys don't need repeating.
Yeah, exactly. I will ask this then. So Sheiky was doing squats while drinking beer. How did he just not throw up? He's really, really fizzy and everything. So.
He's just there, squats, push up, there, stand on his hands against the wall, talk. Wouldn't sit down, huh? Sit down, brother. You have beer.
Did you?
He's always the first thing he's running with the garbage can to get ice in the cooler and cool the beer in his room. I always had cold beer in his room.
What was his favorite brand of beer? What was the one that got Sheiky most excited?
Drinkable, any? Well, your Heineken or your imported, but he wasn't real. As long as it's beer, it would work. If not, Jack Daniels or something. Yeah.
Fair enough. Right, we'll move on then. And Thomas Confrey, did Don ever have any interaction with Kamala in the 80s?
Just how you doing, brother? That's all. I think I was still a heel there. I don't remember.
Yeah, he came in about 86 at one point, I think. So you would have been,
maybe I was, or I was changing baby face, but I never. No, I never just spoke with him, talked. He was a nice guy.
Okay.
Funny story. I guess he was always into that face painting. He got really into that, and coming from Tennessee or wherever it was, where Jimmy Hart brought him from, he did he had a big circle thing on his face. So evidently, a night before in some town, the big African guy, evidently he slapped somebody or something, and I guess a sheriff or a marshal was in the locker room, and he was looking for the African Kamala. And oh no, my name is James Harrison. I'm a professional wrestler. I don't know who this Kamala guy is. I don't know what's happening. My name is James Harrison, and that's he didn't want to be Kamala that time.
Was that WWF or was that elsewhere?
I think it was in Tennessee, or when he came before Jimmy Hart brought him in.
The night Kamala slapped somebody, that's a good one. I'll move on. Oh God, it's another name I'm never going to pronounce. A. Oziello. So I managed it. A huge fan of Don for 40 plus years. Any memory of a riot at a Catholic school gymnasium in Brooklyn early 83? Against Pedro, after being DQ'd, you left the ring and some schmuck took a swing at you. You backhanded him into New Jersey, chairs and nuns went flying. Thanks for the great memories. That is a memory.
Yeah. Yeah, just a memory. Vague memory at that in the 83. But God, just like it was yesterday.
So no, then is the answer. You don't know.
Backhanding somebody into the ring? No. I only remember some girl. I ran into my championship belt one time.
Oh dear, what happened there?
I was going out to the ring. It was in Ohio, some town in Ohio. I'm going to the ring, and she's in back of me, and she punches me in the head. Oh, what God, So I yell at the security, and get this part out of here. So I turn the corner, get him, and it's small, close building, real close building, but packed, 8,000-10,000, good enough amount of people. Take a left somewhere by the thing. Here she comes again. Bang. And it hits me for a second time. It hits me in the head. So I move, keep on going and hit the ringside area. And she comes for a third time. So I just hold the belt up and she runs right into it. Cleaves herself. So that happened, and then her husband tried to get come back in the locker room. The cops ended up slapjacking him and arrested him and her, and I got a lawsuit, and Linda McMahon got me out of that. And that was a long. I went back to Youngstown, Ohio.
Youngstown, Ohio.
We'll never go back.
Did you see the inside of a courtroom on that one, or was it just Linda took care of it?
No, they just handled it. They handled it. I never showed
up. Someone else wrote on a YouTube comment. It didn't send in a question, but I did remember it because I wanted to bring it up to you. Apparently, the writer, you punched out their father, and apparently it was because the guy next to this guy's dad was giving you a load of grief from the ringside area, and you eventually had enough and thought it was this guy's dad instead, and you hit the wrong person. The Sun wrote about it very, he took it very well, at least.
Yeah, I don't know. It was hard. Yeah, those are usually exaggerated because it's pretty hard to get away with hitting somebody, even in those days. It's just, it wasn't. You can get away with a lawsuit or something like that.
Well, a wise man pleads the fifth as well, so that's a good thing to do at the very least. I'll move on, get a few more in, then we'll call this a day. Levi's Pop Culture Cave. What was Mr. Muraco's thoughts on the whole David Schultz situation with John Stossel? Does he think he went too far, or does he commend Schultz for what he did? Thank you for your time, and keep up the good work.
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was great. The guy got what he deserved. It was a punk move. Anybody could, you can slap anybody. Can slap a guy. And it was it was a cheap shot, but the guy had it coming. You want to take your chance. In that era, in the early '80s, in Madison Square Garden, where everybody's pumped up anyway. It was still long before Vince came out of the closet, as it were, getting rid of the commission and the entertainment and all that whole business. So it was like, I thought it was great. I loved it. I thought it was a hell of a shot. I thought it was a cheap shot, but given the opportunity, I doubt I would have done it. I wouldn't have the balls. I wouldn't have the balls to go through it, but.
Is it coincidence that in the background of Dr. D slapping John Stossel,
Fuji.
Mr. Fuji is stood there grinning from ear to ear?
Oh, no, of course not. Of course not, no. Anytime you see Fuji around smiling, it's not by coincidence.
Do you actually, I'll ask this. John Stossel, he was there backstage for quite a while beforehand. Do you remember any other interactions with any other wrestlers that maybe didn't go well, or that people were unhappy that he was there in the first place? And did he try and talk to you maybe?
No, I wasn't in that area. I wasn't around that. Wasn't going on. I don't even know if I was on that card, to tell you the truth. I may have been on the card, but I was there to film some interviews and stuff, and I wasn't working the territory actively at the time. It was kind of like a break I'd taken. I was taking back some of those some of those promos I did. They got me with the girls in the bathing suits and on the beach and stuff like that. I was wrapping around. I was wrapping around all that kind of stuff, and I wasn't involved in, it was a whole different crew kind of. It was just before I came back the second time, so I wasn't involved a lot in that.
So speaking of Dr. D, did you see him get arrested on? Was it the Water Settled the Score MTV special?
No, I didn't.
No. Okay then. I'll move on then. Couple more. Prairie Hawker asked something else I just thought of. Any thoughts on Sodbuster Kenny J? He was the ultimate AWA jobber, but he is also famous for fighting Muhammad Ali before Ali had the Antonio Inoki match.
Oh yeah, he was an institution in the AWA, and he and George Kodowski were the two. They were the two top guys for TV, and I don't know what his job was. But he had he was working, and he was a good hand. He was a good guy good TV guy and good guy to work with. I didn't know him well, I was kind of in a different part of the world than he was. But
did you actually see the Muhammad Ali Antonio Inoki fight?
Yeah, it's pitiful.
Yeah, it's tough to watch. I asked my uncle. It was actually a big TV event over here as well, and he remembered it. He was 17 at the time, and he just went, "God, that was terrible."
Yeah, I wasn't much older. I was pretty young.
I will move on then. Don Chimino, Sergeant Slaughter, in my opinion, did the good guy and a bad guy. As a good guy, fans adored him. Bad guy, fans despised him. Did Mr. Muraco ever wrestle him? I've discovered some early 1980s NWA Mid-Atlantic shows on YouTube and was wondering if Mr. Muraco ever wrestled for Mid-Atlantic.
That's where I wrestled Slaughter a few times in the Mid-Atlantic. For some reason, I don't know why, I was supposed to come in. They brought me in as a babyface after all that exposure up, with Backlund and all that beach bum stuff, and right above their territory, right as they brought me in, and they switched me real quick. But I came in as a babyface for some reason, and I worked with Slaughter a couple of times. Like I say, he's one of the real foundational heel pieces that Vince had established in reforming, rebuilding the WWF.
Yeah, when he turned babyface, I'm thinking around 1983. Man, he seemed popular enough to me when I've seen a couple of clips that he really could have been put in the Hulk Hogan spot and done very well.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember the babyface turn and just how crazy the fans went and the fallout from that?
I think I was out of there at that particular time, but yeah, well, his interviews were, he had great, dismissed maggot, and, his interviews were to the point and they're direct and they're entertaining. He's always, his thoughts were always well organized, and his in the ring work was spectacular. He was just a cornerstone piece of any territory he happened to go into, regardless, NWA or WWF or whatever it happened. He was just a star, no matter where he went.
Do you know what? I only found out this the other day. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I will admit it. I always thought he actually was a drill instructor from the army, and that's like the character. Like that's where he got the character from. No, he was never in the army ever. Apparently.
No.
Oh dear.
There's some funny pictures of him coming out of Minneapolis with the headband and red, white, and blue jackets and some stuff. Yeah, before he morphed into that Sergeant Slaughter character.
Yeah,
but he did well with that, with G.I. Joe and all kinds of cartoons and merchandising and stuff. And then he ended up as an office agent.
Well, that's what got him released, wasn't it? Was it 84 or 85? I don't know if you were in the territory at the time, but he was getting an action figure with G.I. Joe, and he wasn't going to cut Vince McMahon in, and that's why he was released.
Oh, okay. I didn't know about it.
Oh, did you not know about that at all?
I probably did, but didn't realize that it was going on that seriously.
Okay, we'll ask. We've actually got a couple of short ones, then we can wrap it up. C. McMahon. Don, please discuss your friendship with Ernie Roth, the Grand Wizard of Wrestling. What were the circumstances surrounding his death in '83?
I have no idea what. Ernie was fragile. He was an elder gentleman. I don't know what led to his passing. I think it was a heart condition or just a aging illness. He was my first manager when I first went in there. First Magnificent Muraco from coming from Florida. My first stop after Buddy Rogers and Eddie Graham had morphed me into the Magnificent Muraco, and that's where I had my first break in New York, and he was my first manager, and he was a hell of a manager. He always worked for his charge, whoever he was. He would go out and do his pit, whatever, he had to say, and but it would always focus all the attention on you or whoever he happened to be in charge of, manager of, so to speak.
Yeah.
He did, he was like a secretary for Vince Sr. He lived near Vince, I think, in Fort Lauderdale. He had a place in Lauderdale. And Senior had up around Wilmington, Delaware, up in Delaware as well. So he did a lot of office work for, I'm not wrestling, but just probably wrestling as well. But a lot of clerical things for Senior.
I've not seen a lot of Grand Wizard. I've seen a lot more of Lou Albano, who was a bumping manager. I take it the Grand Wizard wasn't exactly a bumping manager.
No. They're getting extreme calling Lou a bumping manager.
A wobbling manager.
Wobbling and slicing his forehead. That was it. Yeah, Lou didn't take a lot of bumps.
Did the manager, for the most part, actually befriend their charges? Because they'd only go to the big arenas, of course. You wouldn't get that much time.
Yeah, no, they just be there on TVs.
Yeah,
and then they'd pay them all. And they. I don't know how their pay scale worked, but they'd be there, and I get. I suppose if we had a number of main events, different places that they did a lot of the promos for, they'd probably get something for there. But I don't know how they got paid.
I'll move on then. Penultimate, D. Wade, of all the people Don worked with in the wrestling world, who was the one that Don always knew he could count on as a friend? With so many stories of backstabbing in wrestling, it's hard to never have a problem with someone in those circles.
Not true. No, there's a lot of people. You can, Fuge, Piper, Donis, Orton was around.
Greg.
Yeah. They kind of him to bury me now, that son of a bitch. That's because he's so old. He can make up all these stories, and people just believe him. Like you can just start telling fantasies, working up old fantasies. If you got something, I don't know what he's got against me. I don't know. I don't know what I did. Probably because I was so much better looking, and such a better, so much the better intercontinental champion than he was, and I'm sure that hurts his feelings a lot.
So
he envied my long brown curly hair.
His was probably grey by 20. That's why he was dyeing it all the time, I imagine. Yeah. So of all the people in wrestling, who was your one best guy, your wingman, the man you could trust?
Fuge, a lot of times Fuge. You have to go with Fu Curtis, King Curtis. Was, but I didn't hang with him. He was more with Marky's guy. Like I said, the Adonis, the Briscoes, Jackie Jerry Briscoe. They were, usually up front with me. People, Ricky Gibson, old Ricky Gibson, and I were good friends before. Not Robert, Rick, the older one. But yeah, there was this, and I don't know about backstabbing. There were guys that did that not as it became with what they call the clique and stuff afterwards. But there was always guys going to the office, working for them that had reputations for that. Being buttering up promoter one way or another.
Right, so then we've got the very final question, and this might even be the longest answer, I don't know, because I've never asked you. From Mark Keegan, what's Don's favourite music/band?
Oh, God, been to the 60s, end of the 60s, early 70s, and I've kind of, I hold it. Then I took on a few after that, Police and some others came later, Earth, Wind and Fire and some other guys, but the ones I left high school with, the Hendrix and the Crosby, Stills and Nash, and Janis Joplin, Airplane. Those, now Whitney Houston, I think the greatest singer of all time. So I heard Colin Cowherd agree to that. So I know I got to be right.
I wouldn't like actively like listen to Whitney Houston on purpose though. Whitney's just like someone who just comes on the radio and you listen to it and then you wait for the next song.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Go on, Beatles or Stones then?
Yeah. That was pretty much my era. Yeah.
I was going to say
Beatles,
which one did you nail your colours to the mast?
Oh God, Stones were really hot back then. When I was the Beatles were the Beatles. So I suppose the Beatles, but I liked the Crosby, Stills and Nash. And there were some other, acoustic groups that did a really, they were really cool. Some wine music too that I like. Then Dusty and the Briscoes used to force that country western stuff on me. Which was pretty good too.
I was going to say, well, apparently they've got the worst taste in music, but what were the best songs to go up and down the road? Or best album, maybe?
Well, I was in Japan when I first hooked up with Dusty. It was like 1971. So he was, was it Sammy Smith, Help Me Make It Through the Night? And Waylon and Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson. Oh, God. What was the big couple of the big country tunes?
On the Road Again.
Yeah, well, that was much later. But Willie Nelson and those kind of guys. Waylon and Willie. Hank Williams Jr., Waylon Jennings, and Willie Nelson. They were the country western favorites at the time.
Right, so then we've learned more about you. We've learned more about your music, but mostly wrestling.
Music genre.
The music genre. It's like everything behind. I don't think you can see that much from the camera, but I felt like I had to get some wrestling stuff. So what you can see there is you can see all the masks and everything. But I felt like I had to get some wrestling stuff in the background. But all these posters I already had. So I don't know. Hang on, I'm just altering Don's camera. So I don't know if you can see. So I've got the Pink Floyd. You won't know the Stone Roses, Beatles, Rolling Stones.
Pink Floyd, Pink Floyd was that whole era. I was pretty locked into.
That's my. That's why. One great regret is that I didn't go and see The Wall live in 2000, 14, 15. With Roger Waters, because I was offered a ticket. I could have bought it, could have been right up front, and it was my mum's 60th birthday, and I couldn't go. So I was gutted. It's like, couldn't you turn 60 any other day of the year? Anyway, that's how it goes. That's how it goes. Anyway, I'll shut this podcast down, and thank you very much for listening. And it's 20 shows we've done now, which I find... is it unbelievable? Do you think we would have got it to 20?
Yeah, it just went fast.
Yeah,
it's easy,
Yeah, well,
that one time you got sick, we missed a week and doubled it up. So
yeah, I was going to say, I will say it's easier from your end. For every episode we put out, I put in like either 10 or 12 hours into it. So here's to 20 more then.
I just respond to the questions.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong.
Oh, dearie me. I tell you, the life of a podcast host and the star of the show. I'm the lowly.
Enjoy yourself, but don't listen to Valentine.
Yeah, exactly. Greg Valentine, don't listen to him. That's from Don himself. That's from the greatest intercontinental champion.
It's all lies. I don't remember that stuff, actually. But I guess if you're that drunk, you're not going to remember anything. Right?
No, we've been sort of like just mentioning Valentine a lot. This is from episode, I believe, 18 or 17. Listen to that and you'll understand it. But for now, I will thank you very much for watching. I'll plug again. So we're obviously on YouTube. You're probably watching this on YouTube.
We have a war going.
We have a war going with Greg Valentine. You can listen to us on podcast platforms. Then you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, donmuraco.com. You can buy merchandise from me as well with books behind me by The Rock and Owen Hart. Not by them, by me, about them. You know what I'm saying. Anyway, thank you very much. 20 episodes. Here's to 20 more. Cheers, Dom.
All right. Winter started last weekend. Very good. Headed to the big wave season's coming.
Get on them waves, Dom. Get on them waves.
Oh, watch him. Just watch him. I'm done.